Hey, it's Matthew David, and today I just want to give a brief transmission, and it goes like this. I think, I know. Now, the problem, as I've discussed over and over again, is that we run on a serious attitude towards life, which means that we have our life force goes through the mind, and it goes through resistors, and it creates additional resistance called unconsciousness. And so what most people do is they operate in past and future jurisdiction. So they engage memory from the past, and then they project into the future what they would like to have happen from the premise of what has happened in the past. So they're starting from a false premise, and they're initiating a repeat of the karmic cycle because they're putting in yesterday's emotions and attitudes and beliefs towards life into the present, and therefore they're trying to create the impossible. So what does it mean to know versus to think? Well, I'm going to actually read a scripture at the end of this transmission, and I'm going to break it down to you. And I just channeled it this morning. It just popped into my awareness. It's Psalms 101, and David's talking about how he does not use the mind. That's what that psalm is about. So what it's about is that he trusts in the Lord through a process of surrender and knowing the goodness of his creator. So what it looks like is this: to know. To know is not to project into the mind next week and say, hey, I know this is going to happen. That's thinking. That's putting you back into the future jurisdiction. To know is to relax, allow, and surrender in real time, as in what is right in front of you right now, trusting that what you need will be there in the moment you need it, including what you need to know. So if you live in a surrendered state of being in now time jurisdiction, you enter the channeling flow state. Now everybody wants to be in the flow. If you've played sports, you understand that when you're in flow, it's like something else takes over, and you have cat-like instincts, like you're falling off a building and you just instantly know exactly what to do with no thinking involved whatsoever. Well, everybody wants to be in that state, but what they do is they try to think about how to get there, and immediately they disconnect from that state altogether. So, as you recall, the thinking is the who, what, when, where, why, and how, the 6 degrees of separation through 3 kingdoms, and it disconnects you. So the opposite of somebody who is allowing is somebody who is disconnected. Now, David talks about it in Psalm 101, about how a disconnected person is not who he is going to model and exemplify. So just stay with me, and I'm going to read this, and I'm going to break it down to you. And these are thoughts that you can think on, because this is going to direct you into the space where you actually lay down the mind. Lay down the mind, because the mind is creating fear, and it's disguised as thinking. It's not thinking, it's fear. So when we think, we're actually worrying, and we are creating unconsciousness and resistance. And if you want the magic to show up in your life, if you want miracles to happen, then just listen to how I break down this psalm and allow the moment of insight to come into your awareness. And most importantly, practice it. Practice it as often as you can to make it a habitual way of being, and you will discover synchronicity unlocked in your life. You will unleash the power of flow. You will transcend the limited logical construct of fear that you call thinking, and you will step into the unknown, and the unknown is the only place where what you desire can come into your experience. You see, if you already knew, you would already have. But since you do not have, you do not know, and it's trickery to imagine that the mind that's creating a problem can give you the solution. Stay tuned.
Listen, there are two types of people in this world. People who believe they can, and people who believe they can't. I'm pretty sure you already know who I am. You see this, MOCAINE. This is my secret. You know, probably you never heard of it because you are swinging around your local coffee shop and congregate with the sheep. Bah, bah. What's wrong with you anyway? So what you waiting for? Go on MOCAINE.com and little Tony will ship you some little baggies, risk-free, to try out. You should be killing it. You should be living like me. You should be living like me. But you ain't, right? You're missing this. This is the secret. This is the fuel to complete your mission. I'm putting powder all over the streets. I don't want to hear any more excuses, okay? You work for me now. I want you to be my customer. Go on MOCAINE.com and do the McCain Miracle morning. I'm not gonna ask you again. I'm not gonna ask you again. So good.
So Matthew, can you tell me the difference between thinking and knowing so that I can understand?
Yes. So what most people do is they engage the 6 degrees of separation through 3 kingdoms, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And they consider this form of negativity thinking. And so when somebody always says, hey, I think, listen, I was thinking, or hey, why don't you let me think about it? You can substitute the word thinking for worry. So, hey, I was worrying that, or I was worrying, I'm worried about, because what you're doing is you're actually engaging in a process that will never get you to the answer, because the problem consciousness that you're in is not the solution-based consciousness. Now, when you step into knowing, you're in the solution. So how would you like to be in the solution so you don't have to do repetitively, endless, mindless chatter up in your head? Sounds good? So I was in the knowing this morning and I said, okay, guides, angels, give me a scripture that's going to tie this all together. And I don't read the Bible. So what I do is I just know. And it said Psalm 101. And I said, okay, Psalm 101. And then it said verse 8. And it came to me. I didn't know what it was. I looked it up and it's absolutely on point. So I'm going to tell you what David, the psalmist, figured out. So come here and look at the psalm here. I'm going to translate it for you. I will sing of your love and justice to you, Lord. I will sing praise. Lord is your dominant attitude in life. So the recognition is that God is love, order, and if we praise anything and we contemplate God, we become God, and gratitude turns on the state of surrendered being. That's knowing. Number 2, I will be careful to lead a blameless life. When will you come to me? I will conduct the affairs of my house with a blameless heart. So what he's talking about is that he's entering non-judgment, which means no thoughts, no fear. He's no longer judging the situation. He's surrendering to the present moment and becoming blameless. Now, there's a saying that humans have. It's not whether you win or lose, it's where you place the blame. They did this to me. That happened. The reason why I'm screwed up is because of you. That's the mind. The mind does that. Number 3, I will not look with approval on anything that is vile. Okay, well, what is vile? Negative thinking. I will not look at negative approval. I will not give my approval to my negative thoughts. They're vile. That's what he's saying. Disregard negative thinking. Number 4, the perverse of heart shall be far from me. I will have nothing to do with what is evil. Again, what he's saying is he's detaching himself from identifying with his negative ideas, his repetitive thinking in the problem consciousness. Number 6, now this is where we bring in the technique that I channeled and discovered called ABC Break. So my eyes will be on the faithful in the land, that they may dwell in me. The one whose walk is blameless will minister to me. So now when you read this from the level of the fundamentalist Christian, they think they're talking about a person sitting on the land. It makes no sense whatsoever. But when you understand what is actually going on here, and I'll give you the premise for it, is that David's recognizing that the ABC break process, how you go into solution consciousness, puts you in the blameless because you already have the solution. You're no longer on problem consciousness. You are entering the world from the solution. So I made a free video that you can get. Download my book at allow.ws. You can learn the ABC break process. Put yourself in the solution to what you're asking for. So the 666, number 7, no one who practices deceit will dwell in my house. No one who speaks falsely will stand in my presence. Who practices deceit? Your lying eyes. Your 666, that's the fall of man. The father of lies is your mind, your human mind. Now, I'm going to give you the premise for where this all comes from. God is omnipresent, which means God is the only presence in all space. God is omnipotent. God is the only power in all of creation. God is omniscient, which means God is the only mind. Anything else from that is the father of lies. So your 666 is not your true identity. What you're doing is you're putting yourself in past and future, standing outside of the now, where you have no power and no jurisdiction. When you stand in the presence and disregard your negative chatterbox and you become fully immersed in the now, you are atoned, at one with God. You are omniscient, which means you are in the mind of God, and you have the answer in that moment because you are God. Now, number 8, this is the scripture that came to me. This is the one you have to know. Every morning I will put to silence all the wicked in the land. I will cut off every evildoer from the city of the Lord. What he's saying is that the wicked in the land are all these thoughts, the fear-based chatter that you keep doing. And so what he's saying is attitude of surrender, trust, and knowing versus thinking. Download my book at allow.ws, learn the ABC break process, and get into solution consciousness, and you will have the answer and you will stop the chatter. Thank you.